Hey guys, I'm going to show you my Marx Universal Monsters figure collection, and I'm going to tell you what I know about them. Now, these figures first were produced in 1963 by Lewis Marx and Company, and I only saw them as a kid as bin items. I still have my original ones. These are not them. Those were pretty beat up and they're in the basement, but I bought all these from different sources later so I'd have nice condition examples of these because I grew up with them and they're pretty important to me. They were a favorite toy when I was growing up. My mom probably started buying me these maybe as early as 63, at least in 64 and 65, I'm pretty sure. And on up through the 60s, I'd get one now and again. And when they first came out in 1963, the main color, really the only color when they first came out, was this teal blue. And some of you might say, wait, teal blue, what's teal as a color and blue as a color? Well, they're actually like two different shades of teal. They're teal green and teal blue. And these are, commonly known as teal blue. And the bottom of the base tells the story. This is the creature from the Black Lagoon. And we'll see if we can get this to focus. There we go. Lewis Marx and Company Incorporated, and that's the Roman numeral for 1963. And there's the other mold circle in the bottom of the base, Universal Pictures Company Incorporated. Copyright. And let me show you the sculpt here. I mean, these are really, really nicely sculpted. It's the reason they're still making them down in Mexico. They still sell these things. You can buy them on eBay. The quality is much less now because the molds have gotten very old over the years and lost a lot of the detail, and they don't clean them the way they did originally at Lewis Marx. You get a lot of excess plastic, flash, and all that. Here's the Frankenstein monster. Pretty sure that's based on Glenn Strange. Or it may be, it may be Cheney Jr. It's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of like a combination, I guess. See if I can get it to come in tight on that so you can see the sculpt really well. Good old camera not wanting to cooperate. Well, anyway, you kind of get the gist of it there. And the bottom of the base is the same as the creature. Lewis Marx and Company, Roman numeral for 1963. And the other one is Universal Pictures. There, finally. Universal Pictures Company Incorporated in the copyright. Now, I'm not going to show you all these. For one thing, I get tired of waiting on that damn camera to focus, but they're all identical except for the hunchback on the bottom of the base. But I'll show you the sculpts. These sculpts are fantastic, and they're definitely worth getting a good look at. Here's the Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr., of course. And he's got, these bases are pretty cool too. They've got a little plaque, with the name of the monster, and that one's got a snake. Kind of in the vein of the Aurora models with the bases and the extra detail. And here's the mummy. Now this is the Karis mummy. You used to see Karis mummies a lot back in the 60s on toys, but Universal mandated that it was going to be Karloff as the mummy on later, newer toys, so that's what we get now. But this is Karis. And hey, you know, it may be Tom Tyler from Mummy's Hand. It's one of those dudes, either Chaney Jr. or Tyler. And the bottom of the base is the same. Now, the bottom of the base on the Hunchback is a little bit different. It's got a blank circle where the Universal Pictures information is on the other figures, but it's still got the Louis Marx in 1963 on the other circle. And this is obviously not the Lon Chaney Hunchback. It looks like, I don't know, is it Charles Lawton that played the later? I know Anthony Quinn did one, but I don't think it's that. Anyway, there's the Hunchback, and we've got the Phantom. Good old Phantom of the Opera. It's Chaney Sr. And same deal on the two mold circles on the bottom of the base. And these masks that the Phantom is holding there in one hand, those are often broken off when you do find these. Sometimes it's kind of hard to find a Phantom without a broken mask. And weird thing is, of all the Phantoms I have here, the only one with a broken mask is the one that's still in the sealed package. And I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, Teal Blue, original issue, 1963. The next year, in 1964, they came out with these orange ones. Same sculpt. We're not going to dwell on the sculpt. You can't see them as well anyway because they're in this newer plastic, this orange shiny stuff. But the date is barred out. The 1963 Roman numerals are barred out on these. The rest of the information on the bottom of the bases is exactly the same. And these came out in 64. I know because I have some of them that I bought as a kid back then. I have some of the blue ones and some of the orange ones that are beat up down in the basement that I originally had as a kid. And I've shown you the sculpts and the bottom of the bases, you know, and I'm not going to dwell on showing you all the sculpts again because they show up much better on that teal blue than they do on this orange. I'm going to go into that plastic in just a second. Of course, the bottom of the Hunchback base is the same. It's got a blank circle and then the date barred out in the circle that mentions the Roman numeral date. And then the Phantom is the same. And this Phantom actually has a price sticker still on it. It says F.W. Woolworth. If it'll ever focus, you can see it. Yeah, there you go. F.W. Woolworth Company, 10 cents. And that's actually kind of unusual for these. I have no doubt that's probably the original price sticker for that toy. And there were a couple of the orange ones that were faintly stamped with it looked like the number had been the number 19, just remnants of that. Now these sold for different prices. They were bin items. I never bought them as anything but single bin items in, you know, like 5 and dime stores like Woolworths, Grant's, you know, just places like that where you'd get cheap toys, Kresge's. And that's the only way I ever had them as a kid, is bin items. Now I've seen pictures, and there is a picture from the Marx catalog from 1964 of a bagged example that was for sale back then called Cinema Creatures. It says on the bag. It's like a clear plastic bag with some graphics, and it shows 3 of the monsters in orange and 3 of them in the teal blue, and it says Cinema Creatures. So evidently they were sold that way at some point. I'm not sure if that was just through catalog sales or if they were also sold like that in retail stores or what. But like I said, the only way I ever saw them was as single bin items. And I've also seen where there was then a picture of an old advertisement that Marx was going to come out with different colors of these, and it named three specific colors that they were going to try to do them in back in the 60s. They were going to do a reddish color called bilious rose, a yellow called creepy yellow, and a green called vile green. And I have never seen any of that stuff. I have seen pictures of some really rare examples of some off colors. Like there was one like an olive green sort of that I saw on the internet, and the owner of it said that he bought it back in the 60s. And I have no doubt, because occasionally Marx would run weird colors of stuff, and occasionally it would get out. Usually those non-conforming pieces would end up in the Marx dump, but not always. But I don't think that ever came to pass where they manufactured these particular figures on a large scale in any other colors originally, but the teal blue in 1963 and the orange in 1964. Also, there are different kind of plastics involved here. In 1964, Marx started changing the plastic it was using in a lot of its play sets and for a lot of its other figures like these. And they were getting rid of the lead paint that was going in for color pigment that had the distinctive, stronger smell, and it gave you this wonderful matte finish that showed the details so well. And these teal blue ones I have here all are of the older plastic. Now the orange ones are all of the newer plastic, the new plastic mix. Some people say that the government mandated they get rid of the lead paint based plastic because of safety concerns. Some people that work for Marx, I've read in interviews and such that they have said that the plastic came out of the molds quicker, which was a big deal when you're running thousands of these things a day on the factory, you know. And they have to run them through and get them out of the mold as quick as possible to keep, in order to keep running, you know, to keep the assembly line going. But anyway, now because the production of the Marx Monsters kind of coincided with the change in plastic, occasionally you see these blue ones not in the lead-based matte finish plastic, but in this shiny plastic. And collectors call those popsicle blue. That's like I've heard that as like a common buzz term for those. And they're pretty scarce. And in a like manner, occasionally you see the orange ones in the older matte finish lead-based plastic, and they call those pumpkin orange. There aren't many of those around, and you see them sell for substantially more than the regular figures because, you know, how collectors are. They want stuff in their collection that's kind of hard to find, and it's an oddity and all that, so they pay more for them. I don't know how much more. I mean, you see them so rarely, it's hard to put a finger on, you know, a dollar amount, like a fair market value for something like that. Now, let's go up to the 70s. All through the 60s, Marx was cranking these out, and I don't know when they actually stopped. They might have stopped in the mid-60s. They just made so many of them. They flooded the market, and they were everywhere for years, and you can still find the original ones on the secondary market. You know, these original teal blue ones are a little bit expensive, you know, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 bucks. The creature might run you more because the creature's always more expensive than every other monster. And these orange ones, you know, they're original too, even though the date is barred out on the bottom of the base. They're from 64. And they normally would sell for, I don't know, 25, 30, 35 bucks, maybe 40 a piece, a little less than the blues because they're a little bit newer and most people have an idea that that's the case. But sometimes you see like really, really high prices on these things. Anyway, fair market on them should be probably around 40 or 50 for the original teal blue, maybe 60 or 70 for teal blue creature. that is in nice condition with no broken fingers or heavy scuffing or any of that. And maybe the fair market value for these orange ones could be, about, I don't know, 25, 30 bucks a piece, maybe 35 or 40. The creature a little bit more, maybe 50 in the orange. And the more scarce pieces, like the matte finish orange ones, the pumpkin orange as they call it, that have the flat finish, they might sell for multiples of that. I don't know how many multiples. And likewise, the popsicle blues, the blue in this shiny plastic might sell for multiples of those prices. I just don't know. But anyway, let's go to the 70s. Now, these green ones, I bought these off of eBay, and I picked up some knowledge of this stuff over the years. Now, in 1972, Lewis Marx retired and sold Marx Toys to Quaker Oats. And I don't think Quaker Oats did anything with these. As a matter of fact, these are made in Mexico by a company called Plastimarx. And Plastimarx used to be part of Marx. It was like a separate factory for Marx in Mexico. And when Quaker Oats bought Marx in 72, that Plastimarx company just split us away from Quaker Oats and became its own company, it looks like. And I don't know if they were like two sets of molds is the reason, but these are marked on the bottom like the orange ones are. They've got the 1963 date barred out. And they all are pretty much the same shade of green. They're kind of a lime green. And the quality is not nearly as good on these. You see, like you can see on the creature's claw there, that it's short molded. And there's a lot of muck and excess plastic flash on the bottom of the base there. You can't even really read that. And likewise, the Frankenstein's pretty sharp. It doesn't have any serious issues like most of them do. And there's what the bottom of the base looks like on these, just like the orange ones. It has the same information, and the Roman numeral date is barred out on these green ones. And you can tell the quality is just not up to par. These are not original Marx issue. And some collectors have started calling these green ones vile green, like they're the really rare offshoot that was never actually produced in quantity from the original 60s run that Marx was gonna make. These are not vile green. I mean, look at this Wolfman. He's got so much excess plastic flashing on that seam there. Looks like he's got an extra set of ears there, like werewolf ears. The original Marx factory would not have allowed that. That wouldn't fly with quality control at Marx. These are from the 70s. They're from Plastimarx in Mexico. And, you can argue that they are original vintage figures, but they're not first run original Marx. They're Plastimarx vintage 1970s. And here's the mummy, and they look pretty good. They're not bad. For the most part, they look a whole lot better than most of the repops coming out of Mexico now that you see on eBay everywhere in the weird colors. And here's, the hunchback, and it's got the same markings as the orange one, a blank circle, and the 1963 date barred out on the other circle. And the Phantom is the same. And they look pretty good. Got some extra flashing there, But all in all, they're not bad, and they're cool to collect. You can get those on eBay for varying prices, usually around, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 bucks a piece. Creature might run you more, just like in everything else. But that's the story on the green ones. They're Plastimarx, they're 70s, they're not vile green original Marx reissues. If they had come out with those things, they would not be in this. That for one thing, if they'd have followed through with that ad campaign for those three weird colors originally at Marx in the 60s, you'd see them a lot more often, you know. Even if they hadn't made quite as many as they did of these colors, you'd still see them. They wouldn't be like needle in a haystack the way they are now with, and I don't think I've ever seen like bilious rose and creepy yellow and all that. But these obviously were, you know, made in quantity down in, in Mexico by Plastimarx, and that's pretty much a story on that. Now I've put these out here. These are just some that I picked up from an eBay seller a few years ago. Blank circles on the bottom, and I just bought them for the weird colors. These are Mexican repops, and in general they are pretty good. You know, I mean, they've got some excess. Look at the plastic sticking up on that base there. They have some excess plastic, but to a Marx Monster collector, these weird colors are kind of cool, you know, just for something different. And look at, there's a bunch of excess plastic there on, let me get the construction paper here so we can get a good look at that. See all that excess plastic? That would not have flown at Marx at all. Quality control was pretty tight at Marx. If something didn't jibe, it generally ended up in the dump. That's why occasionally you hear of people finding really weird color pieces of Marx original pieces in the Marx dump. That's a whole different story though. Here's the mummy in a weird dark green color. And there again, blank circles on the bottom. The repops, Mexican repops that you get now off of eBay, I think they all have these blank bottoms. And like I was saying before, I'm not sure if they had like two different sets of molds is the reason that the orange ones had the date barred out. They came in 64. And these original teal blue ones have the Roman numeral for 1963. Maybe they were selling so many of these that they had another set of molds made and they barred the date out in 64. And they got the Marx plant in Mexico to start making these. And that's the reason when the Marx plant in Mexico became Plastimarx after Marx was sold to Quaker Oats and the Plastimarx kind of split off, you know, became its own thing. They had the molds already down there that they had been running the orange ones from, and they just started running these green ones. And they're marked the same on the bottom as the orange ones. That's just an idea. That's just a hypothesis. I don't know for sure if that's what's going on, but it's a possibility. And okay, let's go to 1990. These in the package here. These are glow in the dark, and they really do glow in the dark. Actually, you know, I'm going to turn the light out and see if we can get some sense of. Well, there's not enough light. Hang on just a second. Let me try this. I want to try to be thorough with this video. I mean, there's a lot of controversy and confusion surrounding these figures, and I was hoping to tell people what I know. Now, I can see in person that this thing has a bit of a glow. After you've had it in the light for a while and it's really charged up, it glows pretty well, and it glows green. All these glow green. For years, before I moved here, I had them up on the wall in my comic book room. And it'd be cool in there to go in, turn the lights out, and see them all glowing there. But anyway, this is from Uncle Milton. I bought all 6 of these at Toys R Us in 1990 when they first came out. And they were $1.99. And it's got some pretty cool graphics on the card there. It's got like in a graveyard, you know, and glows green. Uncle Milton right there. And the back shows all 6 of them. And gives the dates for the movies and all that, you know. Uncle Milton Industries, Culver City, California, 1990. I'm going to go ahead and show you all these. They're the same sculpts. That glow-in-the-dark plastic did not convey detail really very well. It's a cool gimmick, you know, the glow-in-the-dark thing is a cool gimmick. But if you just want to appreciate the sculpts, the best ones to get are the original ones, the teal blue. Those are the ones that most people want that even know what the deal is with these things. There's the creature. I mean, look, you got so much excess plastic there on the claws. You can't even really tell any detail about that. And you can't even, I'm not even going to try to read that base. There's just not enough detail on it to tell much about it. And but you've already seen all the bases on the others, so it's no big deal. Here's the Wolfman. And they've all got their own little different bubbles depending on the shape of the figure. And here is the little hunchback crouched over. They were all $1.99. And here's the last one, and this is the curious one. Here's the Phantom. As you see, mask is broken. There's the mask, still in the package, of course, because it's sealed. And it shakes around in there. There it is, and down in the bottom of the bubble there. Now the deal is, when they made this special bubble for this figure, they did not make this wide enough. And I would wager that all of these are probably broken, because see, it's just kind of crammed in there and there's not room for the mask. So the actual bubble breaks the mask off. Anyway, now we go to these. I believe this came out in 1992. The Monsters Studio. Again, Uncle Milton. Right there. And it's a paint set. And they're molded in a beige color, almost white. It's kind of like a cream beige color. And the plastic on these really takes the paint a lot better. If you've ever tried to paint the original ones, the paint doesn't stick really well to these things. And it comes off pretty easy. But these, in this different kind of plastic, you know, it takes the paint a lot better, and they will stay painted and look a lot better if you do want to paint them. I never painted them myself, but I just bought these off of eBay just to have it in my collection, because I'm such a nut for these things. I wanted to get everything concerning them. And that has a copyright date of 1991, but the instruction that came with it originally is copyright 1992. So that tells you how to paint them and what to do, you know. And I'm fairly certain that these went on sale originally in 1992. Here's the paint set that came with it. It's kind of a generic type thing. And let me get this out here. You know, it's just got like the 16 different types of colors of paint and the brush there. And that's what it was in the paint set. You got the paints, you got the instruction sheet, and you got all 6 of those in the beige color to paint. And here is something that everybody needs to know that's thinking about collecting these things. These came out in like 1992, and they are marked exactly like the original ones. See that? There's the Roman numeral, 1963. If my 2 different sets of molds theory is correct, they got a hold of the molds from that the original teal blue ones were made from. Now, the creature is marked 1963. But there's a bit of variance on these. The Frankenstein has a blank circle there for the date, and the other circle just says Universal Pictures. But the ones that do say 1963, I think it's the rest of them except for the Hunchback. Let's see about this one. The Wolfman. Yeah, 1963. You know, if you went by that alone, you would think that it was originally from 1963, from the original run that Marx did of these things. And you think, wow, that's genuinely from the first run of them in 63. That's big time. And you'd be apt to pay a lot more money for it when in fact you're buying a repop from Uncle Milton from 1992. And that's marked, that has a blank circle on the Hunchback but it's still marked 63. It just doesn't have the Universal Pictures information in that one circle. It's blank like the original one was in that. So basically these are, except for the Frankenstein there, these are marked just like the original ones from 1963 that command a higher price. So when you see these beige ones like this, don't give a lot of money for them. They generally sell for about $10 a piece. If you gave 30 or 40 or 50 bucks a piece for any of those, you got ripped. These original ones are worth that, but those are repops. And something else, the beige ones are made of a different plastic mix. They're kind of rigid, more rigid and brittle than the others. They take the paint a lot better, but if you drop these, you know, you can have them break. You see a lot of them with broken fingers. The Phantom's mask is especially problematic on this one because of that plastic being a little bit more brittle. Phantom masks are often broken on these, and you see fingers broken off a lot on these. So, you know, just be careful. Don't give a ton of money for those things. They're worth about 10 bucks a piece probably now. So, well, anything else? I think that about covers it. You know, there's a lot of confusion about these figures because a lot of the facts have been lost to time, and you know, you hear all these tales about these Plastimarks lime green ones being vile greens from 1960s, and some people think that those beige ones are from 1963 just because they're marked that way on the bottom. And I've seen them offered for really high prices on eBay, these beige ones here, claiming they're original from 1963. And I've seen them sold for really high prices by people, you know, bought by people that didn't know any better. And in some cases, the sellers might not have known. They might not have misrepresented what they had. They might have gone with what they knew. On the other hand, you have some people that, you know, want to take the shortcut and cash in and get more than what they should and basically lie. So be careful. Don't give a lot of money for those things. Now, when you bought the Monster Studio, like I said, it came with the paints, the instruction sheet, and these 6 figures were all in a plastic bag and they were kind of crammed in there. A lot of little things might have got broken just because they were kind of crammed in there, including Phantom masks and fingers. So just be aware of that. Those, you know, are problematic when it comes to the brakes because they're a little bit more rigid. And if I was going to start collecting these now, I'd go for these for sure. These teal blue ones. They're the real deal. The orange ones are the real deal. They're from 1964, and they're, you know, original. They're legit. I had some of them as a kid. And those, yeah, I'd go for the sets of those, the orange ones and the blue ones, you know, if I could get them. The Plastimarks ones are okay if you want them. Now these newer repops, these are some of the older repops. The current ones from Mexico, they've usually got the blank circles on the bottom and they're in weird colors, and a lot of times, you end up paying quite a bit for them because of the shipping from Mexico and the tax on the shipping and all this other crap. You know how eBay is now. But you end up paying a lot for repops. I just wait and have safe searches and try to get a set of these original ones because they're not crazy high. If they were $100 a piece, it'd be a little bit different, but they're not. You can get them for 30, 40 bucks a piece if you're patient. Creature, is probably a little bit more. All right. Well, that's about all I've got to say about the Marx Monsters, and that's about all I know about them. So, if any of you guys know anything else that I'm missing, please put it in the comments, and we will eventually have a good source of information here for collectors in this video that want to get into Marx Universal Monsters figures. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of the information, and I'll see you next time around. Keep on monstering.